Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Living in the West. In Living in the West, we're discussing the issues regarding the Muslim minorities in the West. We've spoken before the importance of discussing this topic, and now we're looking into some of the social aspects, and we moved on slightly to some of the economical aspects or dimensions that involve this group of Muslims. I have with me Sheikh Haitham Al-Haddad from the Muslim Research and Development Foundation from the United Kingdom, an organization and think tank which looks into providing solutions for this mass of Muslims. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh Haitham, previously we discussed some economic dimensions, and one of the important things you touched upon was that before we discuss the issue of riba and interest in the West, which is something that many Muslims discuss, we have to look into the awqaf, trust, and setting up these endowments. Now we've discussed this, can we go into the issue of riba and the importance of tackling this in the West?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. This issue of riba and dealing with riba in non-Muslim countries is or has been a hot topic. And many Muslims think that it is allowed for Muslims to deal with riba in the West because it is a non-Muslim country. And unfortunately, we have heard some fatwa from number of different scholars who allowed this, and even some fatwa went to the level to encourage Muslims to deal with some prohibitions or some riba in order to strengthen the Muslim community. First of all, this notion that riba is not prohibited in the West is not true, and we have to look at it carefully. I know that it has been attributed to Imam Abu Hanifa or to the Hanafi school of thought, but we have to be careful here, because the Hanafi school of thought, when they said that it is allowed for Muslims to deal with riba in non-Muslim countries, they haven't said that exactly. The accurate position of the Hanafis is you can take the access or the riba from a harbi, or you can take riba in Dar al-Harb. That is totally different from saying that it is allowed to deal with riba or in riba in non-Muslim country.
But they only see it as two anyway. They see Dar al-Harb or Dar al-Islam. So this is
Remember
the definition.
that we said that the Hanafi, the classification is a by classifications, means there are two dars or two abodes, the Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. And that's why we said this notion is important, and we need to understand these classifications, because there are a number of fiqhi issues dependent on this. This is a typical example. If we haven't understood this background, we won't be able to understand the correct Hanafi position. The Hanafis, they have the Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. They call any non-Muslim land as Dar al-Harb, and therefore they said the Harbi, he is muharib for us, he is fighting us, and we are fighting him. So if we are fighting him, means his life is halal for us, his wealth is halal for us. So if any of the Muslims enters Dar al-Harb, who is fighting Muslims, and the people are fighting Muslims, of course he is in a state of war with them. Therefore, if he can take their money by any legal or illegal means, provided that he does not have any kind of covenant or agreement with them, then it is permissible for him. If he is allowed to fight them and to kill them, then he is allowed to take their money.
But this is where the disagreement comes, isn't it?
Exactly. That's why we have to qualify this fatwa. And we said that this fatwa is a very dangerous fatwa, because it refers to the Hanafi position, and the Hanafi is considering non-Muslim countries as Dar al-Harb. And if you are considering the European countries now or the non-Muslim countries as Dar al-Harb, and you apply the Hanafi position that the wealth of those people is considered to be halal or booty of war to the Muslims, then this is a very, very dangerous position. And I doubt that any of the Muslim scholars would accept that. That's why we say the essence or the basis of that fatwa is totally wrong. You cannot refer to the Hanafi school of thought in this perspective.
Because of the way that they divided the abodes.
Exactly. And the approach of the Hanafis. The Hanafis, they said, if it is allowed for you to kill, to fight, then it is allowed for you to take the money. Therefore, if they dealt with you in riba, yes, take the money from them. Don't leave it to them. Is this the same situation in the West now? Of course, it is not. Totally different. That's why we say that the essence of the fatwa or the basis of the fatwa is not right. And of course, some scholars refer to the statement of Usury, La riba fi dar al-harb. There is no riba in dar al-harb. But we say that, first of all, this statement of Usury or this hadith is maqtu' and it is not authentic.
It's not authentic.
Yeah. However, even if we say that this statement is an authentic statement, it doesn't mean that there will be no riba in Dar al-Harb. Means if you deal in riba in non-Muslim country or in Dar al-Harb, it is permissible to you. No, there is another interpretation for this. La riba fi Dar al-Harb means don't deal in riba fi Dar al-Harb, in Dar al-Harb. Why don't you take that interpretation? And so this is the other dalil that they bring.
Okay, so let's go back to the original point, which may have been lost, is that there are other classifications of abode which we see are more real or more accepted, and that's why we don't apply this application of Dar al-Harb.
Exactly, this is one thing. But you remember that we may say that some of the European countries may have a combination of status. So it might have an element of Dar al-Harb, it might have an element of Dar al-Ahd, and it might have other elements because of the situation now. The situation is complex. But remember, we said that the people living in non-Muslim countries, they have a social contract between themselves and the other people. They cannot deal with the other people as harbis.
This is the main point I think that we stressed before, and I think it needs to be stressed again, is that this social contract is a contract that's binding upon the people.
Exactly.
It's not something that somebody says, well, hold on, they made the contract, whether it was done tacitly or not, but it doesn't. I don't accept this.
If you are living among them, then they don't look at you as a treasurer. They look at you as a trustworthy person. They look at you as a citizen. Yeah, they might not look at you, they might think that you are part of the fifth column, but as an individual, they don't look at you as someone who is going to steal them. So there is a level of trust. Al-ma'ruf urfan kal-mashruti sharta, as we said. And we said that this is the social contract. Therefore, no one should assume that, yes, it is allowed for me to take riba or to deal with riba in Dar al-Harb.
So we've come to the point now, we've come to understand that this riba can't be accepted in Dar al-Harb. But we've come to...
even in these non-Muslim
countries. But we've come to a point where it's been pushed forward. And to the point where we have the major financial institutions, which are not Muslim institutions, non-Muslim institutions, who are forward in this course.
Yeah, this is again another problem, because irrespective of the permissibility of dealing with riba in non-Muslim countries, some people say that there is a necessity here.
Yes.
There is a darura to deal with riba. But we are telling them, Allah Jalla wa Ala, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that he never made a solution in something that he has prohibited. So let us not assume that riba can be a solution or is a solution. And we have seen in this financial crisis, and we have seen from before, that this capital system, because it is a riba-based system, is facing so many problems, and there are so many flaws in that system. So let us not imagine that riba may bring a solution for either Muslim communities or Muslim individuals. And let us imagine that riba is one of the grave sins, one of the major sins. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Kabairu Sab'a, in Hadith Abi Hurairah in As-Sahihain, Al-Kabairu Sab'a, and he mentioned Wa Aklu Riba. The Prophet ﷺ, Hadith Jabir, said, لعن الله الربا وآكله وموكله وكاتبه وشاهديه. Allah Jalla wa Ala curse the one who eats riba, consumes riba, the one who gives riba, the one who witnesses the contract of riba, the one who writes the contract of riba. So it's not an easy thing. And in the Quran, as I said, if we refer to the ayat, the verses of the economical system, I call these ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah the ayat that build the economical system in Islam. These ayat were talking about the importance of giving sadaqah.
From 263 onwards.
Yes, and then the ayat that talk about the prohibition of riba. In those ayat, Allah Jalla wa Ala clearly waged war against those who eat riba. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you don't abstain from eating riba, then be aware that Allah and His Messenger are waging war against you. They said that Allah never waged war against anyone except in the Quran, except those who eat riba. And Hadith ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the one who eats riba, thinking that he will have an increase, actually كان عاقبة أمره إلى قل. Actually he will end up in a state of loss.
Okay, it's a good point to end on. We're going to take a short break and return in a couple of minutes. Please stay with me in Living in the West. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Living in the West. Just before the break, Sheikh, we spoke about riba, the dangers of riba, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is waging a war upon the person, him and his messenger, and the one who takes riba. Many people are discussing certain financial products which have come into the market now. These products are supposed to go past the issue of riba. Can we just open up this discussion and speak briefly about these products?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There are a number of products offered now in the market, and those products, okay, they vary. Some of products are providing solutions for owning or acquiring properties. Some other products are trying to find solutions for insurance, for example. Some other products are trying to find solutions for financing other needs for Muslims. Even I heard that in some of the European countries they are trying to find solutions to finance students during their study period. Now, these products, some of them have been heavily criticized, and some of them have been successful. Now, here, when we discuss these products, of course, we cannot discuss each single product, but we will give a different description about some of those products. Many of those products are using something called tawarruq. And this tawarruq, where a person is buying something under the condition that he will sell it again. Take, for example, the issue of Islamic mortgage. Islamic mortgage is the person is identifying a property, and the bank is buying the property for the person, but the bank is buying it under the condition that the person or the client is buying it back from the bank. Now this issue of tawarruq or murabaha with a combination of tawarruq or three-dimension murabaha, you can look at it in different ways. It has been heavily criticized by Muslims in Muslim countries. In the West, unfortunately, this notion have been accepted because there are not many scholars who can speak about it, and there are some also pressure towards or against those scholars, and pressure against the Islamic financial institutions, that they have to compromise a little bit and they may accept elements of unacceptable transactions in order to overcome their problems. Now, and they say we can compromise a little bit on some Islamic principles because we are living in a non-Islamic environment and we cannot have a pure Islamic product. And we are saying to them, yes, we can compromise a little bit, but we have to be clear with which element we can compromise on and which elements we cannot compromise. And there are elements that we cannot compromise on, and once we compromise them, then we are actually expanding the problem, the scale of the problem. And that's why, you know, some scholars, they considered this tawarruq as a hila, as a deception, and they consider this hila or this deception worse than riba itself. And there are a number of fatwas, and here maybe there is a very famous fatwa of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen who said that this riba, this tawarruq is a deception and is worse than normal riba. The condition is the person is entering a transaction and he is bound by law to buy the product again. And this kind of stipulated condition may make the contract as a riba based contract but covered with an Islamic label. That's why we have to be very careful in identifying the real Islamic products. And let us not claim that we won't be able to have a pure Islamic products in this non-Islamic system.
It's one of the reasons, Sheikh Haitham, that these products are being pushed forward by certain people or accepted by certain people is because it's following the argument we said before. Some of the scholars, maybe from the Hanafi school of fiqh, and they are slightly different when they look at this topic. Is this not true?
This might be a solution, and this might be a reason. The other reason is many people think that you are living in a non-Muslim country, you cannot implement Islam, so anything called Islam, just use it because it has the label Islam.
Are we saying that riba can never be taken when there's a darura here? When there's a necessity?
There might be some situations where riba can be used, okay? But this situation is not a situation of darura, okay? This is one thing.
So we're clear on this, it's not a darura situation.
It is not a situation of darura. The other thing, because riba is one of the major sins and it affects the whole economical system. So saying that riba can be used in cases of darura, as I said, we may accept that. But we have to be very, very careful, because Allah Jalla wa Ala will not put the solution in something that He has prohibited, and Allah Jalla wa Ala will not put a solution in something that He has severely warned us against. That's why we have to be very, very careful. And see, the thing is, if we want to provide a role model, an example for the non-Muslim community, and they see that this Islamic mortgage looks like the conventional mortgage, then they are going to say, is this Islam? Is this the solution that you are providing for us? I remember we have written a long article about this issue, which is Islamic mortgage. Is it a paradigm shift, okay, or is it a solution?
Where can we find this article, by the way, Sheikh?
Yeah, this article, it is available in this website, www.islam21c.com, means Islam in the 21st century.com. And in this article, we have explained, okay, me and Brother Tariq Diwani, that the dealing with these kind of transactions is itself a problem. It is not solving the problem. That's why we cannot say that using these transactions is a matter of a stepping stone towards the pure Islamic system. And the other problem is, if we tell people that this is halal, purely halal, then people will, will be happy with it, and they will not think to improve that scheme.
Okay, some financial analysts say that these financial products, these Islamic products, actually in all reality, if you measure them up to the normal riba-based products, you're getting a worse deal because you're giving up more. Really.
Yes.
Is this so true, or is it just something that is attacking these kind of products?
No, that is true. That is partially true, because you know the Islamic mortgage, normal mortgage, is asking for maybe 17% to be of increase, and the Islamic mortgage is a matter of 20-something increase. But those people, they haven't seen a clear difference. This is the point. They haven't seen a clear difference between the conventional mortgage and the Islamic mortgage. I do remember after writing an article about the impermissibility of some of those mortgages, a person had an Islamic mortgage and he wanted to change it to he had a conventional mortgage and he wanted to change it to an Islamic mortgage, and he said that he went to the solicitor to have this shift from the conventional one to the Islamic one, and the solicitor, who is specialized in finance, looked at both systems and he said, I cannot understand why you want to have a shift from this to this, while this shift may inquire some financial burden on you, and moreover the new scheme is much more difficult and more expensive than the previous scheme. If they are the same, why don't you stick to the old scheme? Imagine that those people who understand little bit of finance, they are saying this about what we are calling as a solution for the Western problems.
Okay, so this is again down to the labeling, the using of these labels such as Islamic finance or Islamic, how should we say, Islamic products.
That's why we have to be careful when using Islamic products. And many Muslims in non-Muslim countries are trying to use this label. TV channels, they are calling it Islamic channels. Products, they are calling Islamic products. They are using the slogan of Islam. We have to be careful, because once you say Islamic something, you are representing Islam. The people who are looking at it, they will consider whatever is presented here or whatever scheme is included here is a pure Islamic scheme. So you cannot mess around with that scheme, and you cannot use your personal ijtihad in calling this Islamic. It has to be a matter that most of the Ummah agree on it, that it is Islamic.
So again, this goes back to several points we're going to pick up on, which are that the community has to step up and see the importance of not giving this name away.
Exactly.
That's the first thing, because they're giving this name away. The second thing is that the Muslim minorities must be a very important minority, because you've got major financial institutions who are running after them. So another case for the Muslim generally to understand that they are a marketing power. They're not.
Yes.
They're not people who haven't got a power.
Yeah. That is true. That is absolutely true. And the problem, the biggest problem, and we are referring always to this problem, that many Muslims have this inferiority complex, and they have this defeated mentality. Let me refer to the example of Muslims in South Africa. Muslims in South Africa are doing really well. And you will be amazed to know that the population of Muslim in South Africa is not more than 3% out of the total population. However, they have number of ministers, they have many Islamic institutions, pure Islamic institutions. Yes, they have some other institutions that might not be fully acceptable. Why? Because they have been in that country for a long period of time, and they have contributed to that society. They established their own institutions. That's why, even from a financial point of view, they are doing well. So why to say that Muslims in European countries or Muslims in Canada, in America, they can't follow that example? We can follow it. We can achieve. Let us not live as a subjugated minority. Let us live as a group of people that consider to be an integral part of that society.
Well, Sheikh Haitham, Haddad, I think you put that point forward, a very strong and convincing point. I hope you do join me next time in Living in the West. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That exactly. The accurate position of the Hanafis is you can take the access or the riba from a harbi, or you can take riba in Dar al-Harb. That is totally different from saying that it is allowed to deal with riba or in riba in non-Muslim country.
But they only see it as two anyway. They see Dar al-Harb or Dar al-Islam. So this is
remember that we said that the Hanafi, the classification is a by classifications, means there are two dars or two abodes, the Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. And that's why we said this notion is important, and we need to understand these classifications, because
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Living in the West. In Living in the West, we're discussing the issues regarding the Muslim minorities in the West. We've spoken before the importance of discussing this topic, and now we're looking into some of the social aspects, and we moved on slightly to some of the economical aspects or dimensions that involve this group of Muslims. I have with me Sheikh Haitham Al-Haddad from the Muslim Research and Development Foundation from the United Kingdom.
Country. And unfortunately, we have heard some fatwa from number of different scholars who allowed this. And even some fatwa went to the level to encourage Muslims to deal with some prohibitions or some riba in order to strengthen the Muslim community. First of all, this notion that riba is not prohibited in the West is not true. And we have to look at it carefully. I know that it has been attributed to Imam Abu Hanifa or to the Hanafi school of thought, but we have to be careful here, because the Hanafi school of thought, when they said that it is allowed for Muslims to deal with riba in non-Muslim countries, they haven't said
an organization and think tank which looks into providing solutions for this mass of Muslims. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shaykh Haitham, previously we discussed some economic dimensions, and one of the important things you touched upon was that before we discuss the issue of riba and interest in the West, which is something that many Muslims discuss, we have to look into the awqaf, trust, and setting up these endowments. Now we've discussed this, can we go into the issue of riba and the importance of tackling this in the West?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. This issue of riba and dealing with riba in non-Muslim countries is or has been a hot topic. And many Muslims think that it is allowed for Muslims to deal with riba in the West because it is a non-Muslim. There are a number of fiqhi issues dependent on this. This is a typical example. If we haven't understood this background, we won't be able to understand the correct Hanafi position. The Hanafis, they have the Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. They call any non-Muslim land as Dar al-Harb. And therefore, they said the Harbi, he is muharib for us, he is fighting us, and we are fighting him. So if we are fighting him, means his life is halal for us, his wealth is halal for us. So if any of the Muslims enters Dar al-Harb, who is fighting Muslims, and the people are fighting Muslims, of course he is in a state of war with